Today is Amazon Prime Day, which means 24 hours of deals for customers with a paid subscription to the online retail giant. But is that Amazon's biggest impact will hit Boston next spring when the company opens a new office in Fort Point, adding an estimated 900 new jobs to the local economy, which is already home to a thriving tech industry. But new White House immigration plans threaten to throw a wrench into the greater Boston business community and keep talented workers out of the U.S., putting America second in the minds of some. If implemented, the proposals would halt a program that gives visas to foreign entrepreneurs looking to start a business in the U.S. and would require international students living in the U.S. to reapply for their visa every year. Joining me to discuss all that are Director of the New Boston Fund, that's Jim Rapport, who's also the former chair of the Massachusetts Republican Party. Good to see you, Jim. Executive Vice President and Chief Content Officer for Inkhouse PR, that would be Tina Cassidy. Hi, Tina. And Harvard Business School Professor Gautam Mukunda. It's good to see you. So let me list two things. Let's start with young workers coming from beyond our shores. One, Cape Cod, particularly. There have been a lot of articles about this. These seasonal visas, the kids who come over, scrub toilets, wash dishes, all that sort of stuff. The president, under this Hire American and Buy American, is continuing this policy which limits the visas, which is putting these businesses in trouble. And then there's a proposal being floated by Department of Homeland Security, as I said a minute ago, requiring students to reapply for permission to extend their student visa every single year. Starting with you, can you tell me how either of these are good for the economy? How do they put America first?
Well, that is not the issue, as whether or not we should be able to have people renew each year. It's easy to do on computers. They do it online, and it shouldn't, in theory, be a big deal.
Costs a couple $100 extra a year.
I don't think costs.
It does, actually. It's more paperwork. We have a record number of foreign students
which
are pouring.
No question.
So when the kid has a choice to go to, let's say, McGill in Montreal or to go to MIT in Cambridge, why wouldn't he or she say, I'll do McGill?
Because they want to go to MIT or they want to go to Stanford.
So you think there's no downside?
I don't think there's no
downside. How about the Cape thing?
I think it's a big issue. I actually don't, but I used to. But it is a big issue is that why aren't American kids taking those jobs? When you and I were growing up and when we were in our 30s, kids did that.
But the fact is they're not taking those jobs. So, I mean, some of these businesses, if you read these stories, are actually closing down a night or two a week because they don't have the workers do it. Are either of these things good for the economy?
I don't think they're good for the economy, especially in Boston. And it's not just people I know who work in admissions in higher education are already seeing the impact. Students are concerned that they're not going to be able to get to class next fall. So they're hedging their bets already and choosing elsewhere. The uncertainty is bad for the economy. It's bad for people making decisions about what jobs to create and where and when and everything else.
So where are you in this?
So there are two problems with this. One is that anyone who's dealt with the American visa process knows that it is quite often a tangled nightmare of mistakes and bureaucracy in which things go wrong all the time. So no one wants to go through it more often than they possibly can, and it is a significant deterrent. The second problem is Jim's argument that they want to go to MIT instead of McGill. Well, at the moment they do. But they want to go to MIT because MIT is the best. And MIT is the best because it attracts the best, not just from the United States but around the world. If it cannot do that anymore, it will stop being the best. And
how about that argument? So he's agreeing with you today to a point, but saying down the line it may not be because students say, I'll take an easier path to a school that maybe is this much below right now.
Well, a lot of that is happening now where they can't get into MIT, so they're going to the next RPI or the next level down here in the United States.
Yeah, but at RPI, they're going to have to re-up every single year that visa.
They may have to. They're proposing it. It's my understanding is they have proposed it. They haven't yet
But isn't the issue here, Jim Rapport, I would say even beyond the concrete work that needs to be done, on both fronts it's a message. We've all read the BostonGlobe.com this afternoon. This Iranian researcher is supposed to go to Children's Hospital. I think we all care about such things, about to get sent home. And even if one says, well, good, that's part of the travel ban that the courts, at least in part, upheld, isn't it sending a message, as all these things do, America's closed for business, to you at least?
The operative word is to you at least.
Yeah.
They're not saying that they're closed. And again, when it comes to the H-1B and those tourism, those work
H-2B
visas.
is on the Cape, yes. Seasonal visas. Yeah.
They need, why not figure out how to get kids from
But they can't.
Midland?
You don't think that you're a business guy. You don't think if these Moby Dicks in Wellfleet, if they could attract a young American kid rather than a kid from Eastern Europe or Ireland, that they wouldn't? You think they're doing this out of masochism?
No, I think they're doing it because it's easy. They'll take less money, and they might have to pay more.
What do you think Trump? What's the Trump agenda here? And let's assume the truth lies somewhere in the middle between Rappaport and you guys. What's the Trump agenda?
I mean, there's an argument for decreasing the number of low-skilled workers coming to the United States. It's at least a good argument, whether or not I agree with it. The argument for blocking high-skilled workers coming to the United States is on its face absurd. Yes, because we definitely need fewer Googles
and I agree. By the way, I agree with you on that.
And so as to why the Trump people do that, they're very explicit about why they want to do it, right? They're not denying it.
What is it?
Steve Bannon, in an interview with Donald Trump, that's all, you can Google it and find the audio, right? Steve Bannon said to Trump, well, something like half the Silicon Valley CEOs are of Indian descent, and I don't like that because a nation's culture is more important than its economic welfare. It's very open. He would be happy to have the United States take an economic hit and not have Googles and Microsofts and Apples. Remember, Apple was founded by Steve Jobs, the child of a Syrian immigrant. As long as that culture is now, my family is Indian American.
And he's the exception that proves the rule.
I take that pretty personally. Well, he's such an exception that he's the chief of strategy for the Trump White House. So I don't think he's
by the way, he's not. First of all, there are a whole lot of other people around the president and in the administration.
So what do you think is the rationale?
Steve Miller,
what's the rationale for that?
Yeah.
Let's add one more thing to the list, by the way. This international entrepreneur rule that was started by Barack Obama is supposed to go into effect next week. It appears the administration is going to cancel it. These foreign entrepreneurs who are ready to do startup firms here with a significant chunk of investment money already there. The tech industry, who you'd think would say, American tech industry, say great because they're competition, they're railing against the president saying this is where all the creativity and ideas are coming from. So what's that?
And by the way, it is, if that is their goal, I think it's a huge mistake. I do think
Which is a huge mistake?
Preventing people who are willing to invest in this country from coming here.
So why are they doing that?
I have no idea.
Where are you on this?
I think it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. I mean, I can't even.
So do you want to hypothesize? I mean, that may be. I mean, by the way, a huge percentage of these entrepreneurs are from China, from India, and that.
Yeah,
is that?
I will hypothesize that anything foreign right now feels like it's probably from the East, and the administration is focused on a Western culture, and it's as simple as that.
I mean, just to point out, right, Steve Bannon is one guy, so is Steve Miller, so is Jeff Sessions. There are a lot of people in the administration with this kind of views. And, of course, the person Steve Bannon said that to was Donald Trump, the President of the United States. Did he disagree when Bannon said that? No, he did not. So
but he's also brought in a lot of foreign workers over the years, too, ironically.
He has been happy.
He being Donald Trump.
Yeah,
sure. Exactly.
Many of them illegal, in fact.
Can we talk about what I assume is good news as opposed to these controversial things? Amazon doubling their workforce in Boston, adding 900 people next spring, Fort Point Channel. But the one thing I don't get, 900 new workers there, 800 workers gone to GE. Amazon didn't ask for or get any tax breaks or infrastructure aid. GE, for 100 fewer workers, got $145 million of tax breaks and infrastructure. Is something wrong with this picture, or are they just dramatically different things?
Tax breaks to encourage businesses to come to a state is a dangerous game to play because you very rapidly get into an arms race and you start to get favoritism.
Well, we played it with GE.
And, right, the counter-argument...
He's right.
Yeah, the counter-argument would be that Amazon would not have come in without GE. I have no idea if that's true or not. I do know that governments are way too willing, way too willing to believe corporations who say, we're not going to come here unless you give us a tax.
Does the Amazon lesson suggest that if Marty Walsh and Charlie Baker had been tougher with GE and Jeff Immelt, they might have gotten it without $145 million?
They might not have, but it's also, if you look at the way they do get a bunch of that back over time. Some of it is forgiveness of real estate taxes that they get back when the building is sold, kind of a thing.
So why didn't Jeff Bezos ask for the same deal?
The difficulty that you have is that having those kind of arms races are not ultimately, they're not held accountable for saying, oh, we're going to bring in 1,000 jobs, and they don't, and they're not punished for it.
From you, is the moral of the Amazon story, Jeff Bezos, pretty tough character, I think we would agree, is the moral of that story that maybe $145 million was more than we had to spend to get GE to come to Boston?
Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I think that where we are in the market right now with the job market tightening, of course, it is an arms race, right? Amazon's moving here for people, for human resources, and as there's not a whole lot of time to negotiate. I mean, they need to get in. There's not a lot of real estate available in the seaport, so there's a whole sort of psychology or housing, right? They got to get in,
Got to go.
Got to go.
Nice to see you, Jim. Tina?
Yeah, you too, Jim.
Gotham, pleasure as always. Good to see all three of you.